I hold a stick. Sing it to all those motherfuckers like to subdue dick.
Officer friendly, gonna kill your motherfucking ass dead.
Hell yeah!
A taser, a boot, a bullet to your motherfucking head. The gang all joins in. A murder but no goddamn sin. Believe your eyes or what you are fed. With me now, officer friendly, gonna kill your motherfucking ass dead. A taser, a boot, a bullet to your motherfucking head. The gang all joins in. A murder but no goddamn sin. Believe your eyes or what you are fed.
Eat, fuck, kill.
Eat, fuck, kill. Eat, fuck, kill.
Good day, YouTubers, and thanks for stopping by. This is episode 3 of Eat, Fuck, Kill, and I am your host, Masavana Satori Wabi-Sabi. I cannot begin to express to you how excited I am for tonight's episode number 3. Tonight, we're going to cover backpacking, hiking, travels in the woods, wanders in the wilderness, and the love of and the joy that can come from nature. Tonight, I'm going to share with you video footage from my backpacking, hiking, and wilderness traverses from all over the country, and I am very excited to share that with you. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy sharing it with you. Now, over time, I've been thinking about how I wanted to present this, and what I've come to determine is that there's no way I can share with you everything I want to share with you about backpacking, hiking, and the outdoors in a single episode. So tonight, we're just going to begin to scratch the surface. And over a period of time, I'm going to do a series of podcasts. I haven't quite determined yet how regularly it's going to occur, how regularly these podcasts will occur. But over time and with great regularity, we're going to come back to this topic of the outdoors and backpacking and hiking until I share with you everything I want to share with you on this topic. Throughout the entire podcast tonight, and very likely right now while I'm speaking with you, I intend to share with you all throughout tonight's podcast just random footage over my voice of my travels and things that I've wandered into in my travels all over the country, to share with you and to encourage you to ask questions. Where is this place? How do I get there? Where did you take this picture? And encourage some feedback and some give and take where maybe you can discover a place that you're unaware of that you would love to see. And I hope I can be a part of encouraging everyone out there to plan a long stay in the wilderness. Take some friends, take your entire family. This idea that you should be afraid of the wilderness, put that away. You're going to have experience of a lifetime that will enhance your well-being, both physically, mentally, spiritually, and otherwise, emotionally, in every way you would want to feel better. You will feel better. Also, on that exact note, throughout tonight, I'll be sprinkling in quotes from people all throughout the podcast relating the wilderness and the outdoors, quotes that I think are important and kind of help steer the conversation that we're going to have tonight about the outdoors. We'll discuss the benefits of spending time in nature and how those benefits kind of play out, or how I've found those benefits to play out, both in short-term stays in nature and longer stays in nature. And I look forward to sharing that with you tonight. Take the time right now, go on over to Twitter and follow me on Twitter, Masavana Satori Wabi-Sabi. And I'll put a graphic on the screen to make that easy for you. And subscribe right now. Go find the subscribe button to my channel, Masavana Wabi-Sabi, and give it a click and subscribe. If you subscribe to my channel, you will then be notified every time a new episode in 2021 comes out of Eat, Fuck, Kill. which I will remind you again, we'll be doing new episodes every 7 to 10 days from this point forward in 2021 after the release of the first 3 episodes simultaneously here in late January. We'll probably also tonight talk about gear quite a bit. And whether we do or not, for certain, we're going to talk about footwear, insoles, and caring for your feet, both before and during a backpacking or hiking trip in the woods. It is critical. One of the most critical things you can do for yourself is proper foot care. Make sure you're not getting blisters and burn spots on your feet, and keeping them dry, clean, keeping your nails cared for properly, and just doing all the things you need to do. And we'll talk about what all of that is for proper foot care, because there is nothing that will end a hike quicker than having 2 painful feet. So thanks for stopping by, and let's get started with episode 3 of Eat Fuck Kill. I am fired the fuck up. Let's do it. In this episode, I'm going to describe for you 2 grand journeys. Now, these 2 journeys have some things in common and some things where that very different. One of these trips is going to be what I will call a car-based trip. Now, while there will be plenty of opportunity to hike and for backpacking and journeys and interactions with nature on this trip, you will be traveling via vehicle, car. And the other trip is going to be exclusively a backpacking trip, a hiking trip. You're going to head into the woods with all your stuff on your back, and you're going to take a long walk. And I'm going to lay out in detail both of these journeys for you, so that before you even have to begin planning either of these journeys, you'll feel like you know them. Now, one of the trips is on the West Coast, and one of the trips is on the East Coast, so no one has to go more than half a country away. Okay, let's get started with our first trip. Now, this first trip is a life list event. I can't begin to express to you how many incredible things you'll see on this trip. This is a car trip with plenty of backpacking and hiking mixed in. And the starting point for this trip is Bishop, California. And I chose Bishop because it has a reasonable selection as a transportation hub. There's bus service there. There is train service there. You can rent a car there. And there's also a small airport there. So I chose Bishop for that reason. If you are coming by car and you're within a day's drive, then I would get to Bishop, California from the north if I possibly could, coming down Highway 6 from up at Benton, and get to Bishop that way. Now, if you're coming from a long way off and you elect to fly most of the way, you could fly into Vegas and rent a car in Vegas for 10 days and do this trip, and then fly back out of Vegas again. Now, from Vegas, it's about a 3.5-hour drive to the starting point of this trip, which if you fly into Vegas and get a car, I'll call Big Pine, California, which is just a little further south from Bishop, California. But either way, this is going to be the starting point of the journey. However you get there, I encourage you to take the time to get there. And I know you're thinking this is going to be expensive, and how am I going to get off work? Now, the work thing I can't help you with, but I can tell you that I priced this trip out earlier today, and that was I priced it out as if I was going to fly from Atlanta to Vegas. I tried to pick a large popular city a long way from Vegas, and I priced it for flying from Atlanta to Vegas, and the prices are for this coming June of 2021. Round trip from Atlanta to Vegas, and to rent a car for 10 days, you were at a little over $600 for both. Now you add in $200 for gas for this trip. And I mean, that assumes you're putting $20 worth of gas in the tank every single day you have it for the 10 days, which I don't think is going to be the case, because you're going to be doing quite a bit of backpacking and hiking and sightseeing, but you'll be doing, a good bit of driving. So $200 for gas, which I don't think you'll spend. And now you're at $800. I also wanted to take a look at this. If you fly into Vegas and decide that you wanted to rent the car in Vegas and you're going to drive into Big Pine, it's about a 3.5 hour drive from Vegas to Big Pine. So if you don't want to do too much more driving that day, if you look at this map here, you'll see there's the in the top right corner there, you'll see the map of Big Pine, and you can see the road that leads all the way down and back to Big Pine Creek Campground. And if you wanted to make it a short day, the 3.5 hours from Vegas out to Big Pine, and then just drive out to Big Pine Creek Campground, there's terrific hiking. That is a beautiful area that the Big Pine Creek Campground is in. And there is just, and I'm not talking like your local park level beauty. I'm talking remote wilderness, bears. There is any number of wildlife that you could wander into at any point in these places. So keep your camera and your bear mace ready. This could be the adventure of a lifetime for less than $1,000. Because after you get the flight, the rental car, and the gas, from there, you're looking at campgrounds for your stays, and many of them free. You'll be eating out of coolers and stuff you cook around the campfire or on the grill at the campground. And it'll all be stuff you'll be pulling out of a cooler over those 10 days. And you can certainly take care of your food and drink needs for 10 days for less than $200, and your small campground fees. Like I said, because several nights it'll be free. So if one person can do this trip for less than $1,000. And I've seen people spend $1,000 on things way, way less worthwhile than the trip I'm about to describe to you. So let's get started. As you see on this map here, between Bishop, California, which will be in the top center of your screen there, and Lone Pine, California, which will be in the bottom center of your screen, the two, Bishop and Lone Pine, are connected, as you see, by Highway 395. Your first day out of Bishop, you're just going to slowly meander down 395, and you're in for a treat. As you see here on the map, to the right of you, I should point out that this is one of the most remote areas in the entire country. You're surrounded by enormous mountain peaks and vast swaths of desert. And as you see here on the map, you can see as you're driving south from Bishop towards Lone Pine, on your right, you'll have the Inyo National Forest, you'll have the Sierra National Forest, you have Kings Canyon National Park, Sequoia National Park, Mount Whitney, Sequoia National Forest. You have a remarkable wilderness playground to the right of Highway 395 the whole way between Bishop and Lone Pine. And to your left, you have an enormous swath of desert all along 395 between Big Pine and Lone Pine. All along here, as you get into Aberdeen and Black Rock and Independence and Manzanar, there are roads that jut off to the right. And I'm going to let you explore them between now and your trip and see if there's what you want to explore in there. And all those roads that jut off to the right, a lot of times they're just dead ends that kind of go off into the Kings Canyon National Park or over towards the National Forest. Then they just dead end and you have to come back out. So take a look on some maps, or get on your computer and take a look at your maps as you're looking at this, because this is the area that I'm leaving for you to kind of design for yourself. And give yourself a day, maybe even a day and a half, to explore the area between Big Pine and Lone Pine and all those roads to the right on 395 that turn to the right and head off towards like Kings Canyon and all the national forests off to the right. And the reason I'm kind of giving you some open menu there in the first day and a half is because once you get to Lone Pine, I'm going to pretty specifically lay out the rest of this trip for you. And as you can see on the map here, as you're coming into Lone Pine, and this is where I'll start to get pretty specific with my directions. You can see on the first map that I'm showing you here that as you're coming into Lone Pine, on 395, you'll come across West Bush Street there. You'll see on the map there As you're coming in on 395 into Lone Pine, you'll see the Lone Pine Market there. I have underlined on your right. That's a fine opportunity to pick up any last minute supplies here, because some ice, whatever you might need, because ultimately you're probably going to be on this dead end road here for about 2 days before you come back out. But that'll be up to you exactly how long. It might just be an evening. That'll be up to you. But you can see here, I lead you down. You're going to turn right off of 395 onto Whitney Portal Road. And you're just going to start to take Whitney Portal Road. You'll continue on Whitney Portal Road. And it's more than 10 miles back to where you're headed, but only a couple miles in down Whitney Portal Road, there's going to be a road that juts off to the right and leads you towards a place called Nightmare Rock, as you see there on the map. And all along this, as you're driving down Whitney Portal Road, for much of this, you'll be riding right along Lone Pine Creek. And for much of the time, you'll be either driving across it or right beside it, and you'll be able to see it the whole way. But either on the way in or on the way out, take the time to go see Nightmare Rock. And it's not far off the path at all. It's very close to Whitney Portal Road. It's just off it. And take the time to go see Nightmare Rock. And it's another of the many places that you'll probably want to take a photograph while you're there. So break out the camera, enjoy that. And as you're continuing on back, you'll see after right about the halfway point of Whitney Portal Road, you'll come upon Lone Pine Campground. This is a great campground. It's a great hiking area past Lone Pine Campground. But I wanted you to be aware that it's there, and there you see it, right along the creek still. But I'd prefer that, and you'd prefer to just continue on past this campground and continue on Whitney Portal Road all the way to close to near where it dead ends. And this is where you're going to come, you see there, to the Whitney Portal Campground. Now, the Whitney Portal Campground is as close as you can get to the Mount Whitney Trailhead here. The Mount Whitney Trailhead, you'll see to the left of the screen there, is right about where Carolyn Creek comes into Lone Pine Creek. And there's bathrooms there. The Whitney Portal Trail, you're going to need a permit, and you're going to have to, I think it's on a lottery. So you're going to have to kind of get online and deal with the Park Service to get you a permit. And if you're lucky enough to get the permit, then terrific for you. Now, keep in mind, this trail here, this trailhead that you're standing at leads or can lead to the very top of Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain in the contiguous United States, the lower 48. It's over 14,500 feet high, and it is, All Trails considers it to be a very hard hike, and it most certainly is. And because of that, don't go into it with the idea that you're going to stand on the top of Mount Whitney today, because that takes all kinds of special planning. You're going to have to do that. You'd have to leave incredibly early in the morning and get to moving. And 10 and a half months of the year, you're going to want to take at bare minimum an ice axe and probably some crampons. Now, if you get the permit and you go into it knowing there's no way you're going to get to the top, because it is really hard and it'll put a lump in your throat a couple of times, just walk what you can. And when you get to that first point when you're like, I don't think I want to go any further, then turn around. The idea isn't to stand on the top. The idea is to absorb where you're at, be where you're at, and you'll appreciate it. It's beautiful the whole way up. You don't have to stand on the top to have all kinds of wonderful stuff all around you. And you'll be in the Inyo National Forest for the whole of this hike if you get on the Mount Whitney Trail. If you're unable to get a permit, there is plenty of other options for hiking in the area that won't demand a permit of you. I'm going to read a little bit about the campground here, the Whitney Portal Campground, so you can get a little bit of an idea of what it has to offer. Whitney Portal Campground is in a prime location within the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains at the base of Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the continental United States. With hiking trails to Mount Whitney and the John Muir Wilderness less than a mile away, the campground is a popular home base for hikers. here's some information about the trail that you could take a look at. And while you're looking at this, I'm going to share with you a couple of pages of information about the Whitney Portal Campground. And as you're perusing those pages and reading them, what I'll do is share with you some beautiful sights and sounds from my travels. And you'll note there that Whitney Portal, they're saying it's $28 a night, but I'm pretty sure if you have the park pass, or depending on what kind of pass you have, it can be half price, but I'm not certain of that. So your mission for this day, if you choose to accept it, is to camp at Whitney Portal Campground, hike the trail up to Mount Whitney, or as much of the Mount Whitney Trail as you would like to hike. Spend the evening, spend a day or two hiking in the John Muir Wilderness, and you can do the research yourself because you've got plenty of time before you can go between COVID and the weather. You'll want to do this trip in, I would say, June. There's other, if the more you're going to do at Mount Whitney, and the more you're going to want to do this trip in June, mid-June ideally, and it'll be a little tougher in this for a day or so of this trip, but the rest of it, it'll be much more manageable doing it in June, and you'll understand better what I mean by that in a bit. So this will be your playground for as long as you choose to make it, understanding this is a 10-day trip in total, and you will find and see remarkable wildlife. This is a great time to break out the telescope if you have it, the binoculars, the camera, to take a hike or two or three. And since California has recreational pot, this would be a great time to a great night to sit around the campfire and smoke a fatty as well. And maybe walk off into the woods and smoke a fatty as you wander around the John Muir Wilderness. You will not regret any of that. So once you're done enjoying your hiking time around Whitney Portal and the John Muir Wilderness and Mount Whitney, come back out Whitney Portal Road. And if you didn't visit Nightmare Rock on the way in, visit it on the way out, and come back out to Lone Pine. And this is where the adventure continues. When you get back to 395 on Whitney Portal Road, you're just going to turn right and continue on 395. Now, in the picture that you see here, you can kind of see an overview of 395 running through Lone Pine. And then you see shortly after you get south of Lone Pine there, and I should point out that south of Lone Pine on 395 there's a visitor center there, a visitors and information center on 395 that has probably the best view in the area from a distance anyway of Mount Whitney. So there's a great photograph opportunity there. But ultimately you can see that shortly after you get south of Lone Pine, you're going to intersect on the left with Highway 136, California State Route 136, and you're going to want to turn left onto that California State Route 136, and you can kind of see there, I've got it mapped out for you. You're going to drive on 395 down to 136 and turn left, follow that arrow, and you're going to continue a short ways down on the 136, and you see here into the small town of Keeler on 136. There is not much in Keeler. There you see Keeler on the map there. And you'll note that when you get to the south end of Keeler on Highway 136 there, on your left-hand side is going to come in Cerro Gordo Street, Cerro Gordo Street, Cerrogordo, Cerro Gordo Street, and you're going to want to turn left onto Cerro Gordo Street. And you're going to be following that arrow there on the screen, and that'll take you further out on the Cerro Gordo Street, ultimately leading you towards the Cerro Gordo Ghost Town. Now, there is a YouTube channel devoted to this ghost town. So if you go to the YouTube channel and reach out to the guy, he owns the town. I'm pretty sure he owns the town or much of it. You can get arrangements in advance to have some pretty remarkable experiences out there at the ghost town. And plus you'll get an idea what you're in for at the YouTube channel. So definitely check out the YouTube channel for the Cerro Gordo Ghost Town. And if that sounds like something that would appeal to you, you'll be driving right past it, and I would recommend a stop in the Cerro Gordo Ghost Town. Once you're done in Cerro Gordo, just like at Whitney Portal, you're going to turn around. You're going to come right back out onto Highway 190 in Keeler there, and you'll turn left on the Highway 190. And here's an overview of where you're headed next. And from Keeler, with a couple of stops in between, you're heading out to Emigrant Campground, which you see marked on the map there. Now, the way we'll go about getting there, when you get back to Keeler on 136, you're going to turn left and you're going to just continue on the same way you were going and just follow that arrow down through Keeler. And you're heading down there towards Panamint Springs and Darwin at the bottom corner of the map. When you get down on 136 a ways, 190 is going to cut off to the right and go down there towards Olancha. But you're going to stay straight on the 190 down towards Panamint Springs and Darwin as the map shows here. And you'll continue on 190. And as this map here shows, after a while, you're going to come to what's called the Darwin Historic Marker. To the left, you're going to have a road called the Talc City Cutoff that juts off to the left right there by the Darwin Historic Marker. And to the right, you're going to have Darwin Road. Just as it shows on the map here, you're going to turn right onto Darwin Road, and that road is going to dead end into the ghost town of Darwin, California. And I'll share with you a few photos here from Darwin, California. When you're done in Darwin, you're going to come back out to 190, just like previous. Darwin, that road, I'm pretty sure Darwin Road just dead ends into Darwin, then you come back out. Darwin's another ghost town that's just a remarkable place. The last time I was there, I've been there a couple of times. The last time I was there, there were some people that had moved in and were kind of living there. And so it's an ever-changing, ever-evolving place. Check it out as much as you can online, see what you can learn about it. But and then on the outskirts of Darwin, not so much in the town itself, but there's like the old bar, the saloon is still there, and it's remarkable. So you're going to come back out Darwin Road and get back on to Highway 190. And when you get back to Darwin Road or to 190, you're going to just turn right. You're going to continue wandering along Highway 190 as the map here shows. And the next stop on your trip is just it's right along the road. It's just right off the road, I should say. And you can see it here on the map. It's the Father Crowley Overlook. This is an unbelievable place to spend an hour or two. Break out some chairs, some cold drinks, your camera, and just sit and watch. And if you get a chance, take a look at some reviews before you leave. This is a great place to see some incredible stuff. When you're done with Father Crowley Outlook, you're just going to come back out onto 190 and continue rolling along on Highway 190, just like the map shows here. And ultimately, you will arrive at Emigrant Campground. Now you'll see, you'll know you're getting very close to Emigrant Campground, which will be on your left the way you're coming in. You'll notice here on this map that just after you pass Emigrant Canyon Road on your right, that's when you know that Emigrant Campground is coming up on the left there. And it's not open anymore, but right by there, you'll see there's an old gate that used to be an entrance gate for the park. And also there, you'll see the bathrooms for the campground, and there's a water spout in the ground. And that's your digs for the night, Emigrant Campground. And here's the tip that I'll offer for you, specifically as it relates to Emigrant Campground. If your schedule allows and you're able to do this, I think you'll find this to be a pretty useful way to approach your evening here. If at all possible, go into your tent before it gets dark and stay in there until it's very dark, at least 10 p.m., if not midnight. And I know you think that's going to sound boring, you're just getting to the campground and going into your tent, but no. What you're doing is you're letting the show build all around you while you're unaware of it. Once you're certain that it's complete darkness all around you, step outside your tent and enjoy the show. And by doing it this way, it'll hit you all at once and it will not gradually come upon you. You will be hit all at once with the grandeur of the show. And I encourage you to enjoy it. Now, come prepared because your night at Emigrant Campground is going to be dominated by the stars. The campground is free, and this is a great night to break out the telescope and star watch. It's going to take a while to get dark in the summer since you're going to be there in June. We'll call it the late spring, early summer, depending on when you're there. What I would do is, if you can't stay up all night, is get an early sleep and set your alarm for about 1 a.m. And between about 1 and 4 a.m., just lay across the picnic tables there in the campground, or if you have an air mattress or something you could throw on the ground. The ground at Emigrant Campground is gravel and rock, and it's hard. So bring an air mattress or a pad of some sort. Throw a pad down on the ground and just lay on your back and stare up at the stars in Emigrant Campground. It's one of the most remarkable stargazing locations in the whole of the United States, certainly in the lower 48. You will get some photographs that evening, some video that evening. That'll be second to none in your collection. So spend the night at Emigrant Campground free of charge. Be in awe of the night sky above you. Cook yourself a nice dinner and wake up to a nice cup of coffee or hot tea. And the journey continues from there. After your incredible evening stargazing at Emigrant Campground in Death Valley National Park, you are going to turn around and come back the way you came. And you're going to pass Darwin again and come all the way back out as if you're going all the way back towards Keeler, but you're not going to get that far. You're going to stay on the same road and pass Darwin. After you pass Darwin, you're going to just stay on 190. And when you come back, and as you see here on the map, when 190 wants to turn into 136 here and take you back towards Keeler, what you're going to do is turn left here onto the section of 190 that continues on towards Olancha, as you see there on the map. And you're going to pick up 395 going south again from in Olancha. You're going to pick up 395 south heading down towards Grant, California. You'll pick up 395 again in the same direction in Olancha, and you'll turn left on the 395 heading south then. And you'll pass through Grant and Howey and Dunmovin and Coso Junction and Coso and Little Lake. And then you're going to just in the town of Linney, California, is where your next movement is. And you can see it on the map here when you're coming into Linney. And you can see the town name for Linney is down there in the lower right-hand corner. You're coming down 395, and you're going to turn right at the border of the town of Linney. You're going to turn right on the 9 Mile Canyon Road, which at times is also known as Sherman Pass Road. As you see there on this map, the last of the 4 names on that road is Sherman Pass, but it's also 9 Mile Canyon Road. And that's where you're going to turn right, and that's where the adventure will continue. And you'll see on this map, 9 Mile Canyon Road and Sherman Pass Road is going to continue out and at times become Kennedy Meadow Road, and you're going to just follow like it shows on the map. This area is filled with wildlife, so be ready and prepared to run into any number of unexpected wildlife. I would encourage you to do a little research before you take this journey and find out what kind of wildlife you might expect to see in this region. And Sherman Pass Road continues, and it's a good 12 miles, maybe 15 miles from when you turn on to Sherman Pass Road to the point where you get to where you're going. And you can see here at different times it's referenced as Road J41, but it's Sherman Pass Road, and just continue on it. You see it more clearly becomes Kennedy Meadow Road. And you're going to follow up and you see that you're coming up to like a little Y split there when Sherman Pass Road goes off to the right towards Kennedy Meadows. And that's, you're just going to keep going towards Kennedy Meadows. And you see that Sherman Pass Road once again kind of finds the name of J41. And right here where Kennedy Meadows General Store is, and that's a definite must stop. I would encourage you to stop there and spend some time. And if not, on the way in, you can stop there while you're there, or because you'll be in this area for a bit. But definitely note where the Kennedy Meadows General Store is on your way in, as you see here. And that's where it kind of becomes J41. And you're going to stay to the right there. Stay on the road to the right that thins out, and you will continue all the way back to Kennedy Meadows Campground. And you'll see here that all along it, towards the end here, as you're coming in on Kennedy Meadow Road and J41, you're entering in along the Kern River. And that's what the blue line there is on several of these maps. That's the Kern River. And the dotted green line, that's the Pacific Crest Trail. It's a national scenic trail. It's one of the most prominent footpaths in the country. It is its own kind of special, and it's every bit as wonderful as the Appalachian Trail. It's a little longer, but anyway, Kennedy Meadows Campground along the Pacific Crest Trail here is an incredibly well-known place. It's iconic. This is a place where I would encourage you to spend a couple days and hike out of Kennedy Meadows Campground along the Pacific Crest Trail in both directions as far as you can in each day. And throw yourself a smart day pack together that includes all the necessary safety precautions that you would need. You'll want to have a headlamp, a rain jacket, plenty of water, some food, some bear mace, whatever maps or guides you may need. And you can pick them up at any number of different, and when you get to the campground, you can talk to them, people there, and they'll tell you about what you're in for in both directions and kind of help you understand what you can do. And they may be even be able to shuttle you, where they'll drive you from the campground, to a road crossing with the trail 6 miles away, and then you walk back to the campground on the trail the 6 miles they just drove you. Definitely hike the Pacific Crest Trail here out of Kennedy Meadows Campground, a day in each direction. Day hike one day north from here, and if you have to do do out and backs in both directions. But talk to the people, do some research in advance, and design yourself a couple of hikes out of Kennedy Meadows Campground using the Pacific Crest Trail. And I promise you, if you perceive hiking and backpacking as something you might enjoy even a little bit, or if you've done it and already found joy in it, you will absolutely love this. So bring your backpacks, bring your tents. You could even do a go out and camp out overnight somewhere along the trail kind of thing. And there's plenty of guides you can look up online, what you think will work best for you. And you can plan some hikes along the Pacific Crest Trail here out of Kennedy Meadows Campground. And this will be something you remember for the rest of your life, in a trip filled with moments you'll remember for the rest of your life. Hiking in this area will at times have you in remarkably beautiful wilderness areas. Take your time, absorb these moments. I'm going to read to you a bit about the Kennedy Meadows Campground. And keep in mind, with everything we're discussing, this is all COVID dependent. Who knows what's going to happen when. So all of these trips are COVID dependent in their own way. And I guess depending on where you are, federal and state installations can be closed while COVID restrictions are at their current level. And who's to say when and what's going on with all that? So that keep all that in mind. But here's some information about the Kennedy Meadows Campground. Located on the Pacific Crest Trail, near the South Fork of the Kern River, Kennedy Meadows Campground is surrounded by the South Sierra, golden trout, and domeland wildernesses. Some of the 37 sites here are shaded by juniper and pinyon. So that's a smidge about the Kennedy Meadows Campground. For the next leg of your journey, once you're completed with all your fun at Kennedy Meadows Campground and the Pacific Crest Trail, you're going to take the short jaunt back towards Kennedy Meadows General Store. But instead of going back down the way you came, you're going to turn right on the Sherman Pass Road there at the Kennedy Meadows General Store. And you're going to continue on Sherman Pass Road, which you had been on before you got to Kennedy Meadows Campground for quite some time. And as the maps indicate there, you can see Kennedy Meadows Campground down in the lower right-hand corner there. And it becomes Forest Road, what is it, 2205, I believe that says. But it's Sherman Pass Road, and you can see it winds all over the place, and you're going to continue to take Sherman Pass Road. And you're winding through beautiful national forest. So this isn't going to be fast driving by any sense of the imagination. This is going to be slow going through here. But there's also going to be just so many pullouts and beautiful places, and you're going to see wildlife all over the place. While this may just look like driving on roads, this is the furthest thing from it. So give this area time and absorb it, and do your research, because what you'll find, and I don't have the time to go through it all, but what you'll find is that there are countless hikes, countless trails all through this region. And there is wildlife in abundance just everywhere you look in this area. So take the time to pull over and do some day hikes in this area, and do your research before you leave, so you know exactly where your trailheads are, where you can park, where you're going to hike to. Leave a little bit to the imagination, but be prepared as well, and have all the supplies with you that you'll need to have a safe hike. And there's plenty of places along the way. Most all the campgrounds have water, and you can refill there. And as you pick up groceries and ice along the way and things like that, you can certainly fill your water bottles there as well. Keep plenty of water on hand at all times. That's critical. And as you continue down Sherman Pass Road, here's the part. So as you get around the Sherman Peak area on Sherman Pass Road, and you've been on quite a while, and you'll see that it just continues on Sherman Pass Road, and there's just some remarkable driving through here. And if you elect, there's plenty of places, and again, do your research before you leave. There's plenty of places here in the national forest here, which means you can pull over and camp for free anywhere you want. So make sure you have plenty of water with you, so that you're not having to worry about where you can stay or stop and what have you, because you're about to run out of water. Just make sure you got plenty of water with you before you even start this, and have plenty of water with you at all times and throughout this journey. And you'll be thankful for that. Here's where I'm going to have you make note as you're coming in off of Sherman Pass Road here. It becomes, you're going to break off to the right there on the Mountain Highway 99 up towards Capitol Rock. And then at Capitol Rock, you're going to jut to the left where the road goes right or left, and you're going to jut to the left onto M50, Road M50. And you're going to wind around on Road M50 for quite a while until you see there M90 will come in on the right, and you're going to turn right onto M90, Road M90, up towards, you see there, the Trail of 100 Giants trailhead. That's why it's circled there on their map. And you'll note there by Capitol Rock, there's a ranch back there too, if you want to institute that into your plans. The Trail of 100 Giants trailhead. This trail, it's not long. And there's actually a couple of trails in this area, and there's a campground in this area as well. And I would encourage you, and you can see on this map here, This map shows in pretty good detail the different trails, how you get to them, and the campground there, which it shows as being temporarily closed, but that's because of COVID. And the minute we get this COVID thing dealt with, that's an excellent campground in an ideal location. And you'll notice uh, there's some pretty good fishing in this area too. But the real treat here is those dotted green lines. The reason for that is you're in the area here now where some of the largest, oldest, and most majestic trees on Earth are in this area. That's what you'll find in great numbers at Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Parks, which you're driving right along all throughout this journey. And here, along the Trail of 100 Giants, you will wander amongst giant sequoia trees. And some of, like I said, some of the oldest and largest and most majestic trees on Earth. And it is remarkable. Take your time. And you see, you have one trail connects to the other and it becomes a loop, and then you can come back. Do it all. Do all of this. And if it's too much, take 2 days. Wander this area, take some photographs, enjoy the wildlife, take some binoculars with you on the trail. And again, take all the things that you would need in a worst case scenario. So have bear spray, have a rain jacket, have a headlamp, plenty of water, and some food. Comfortable shoes with quality insoles. All of these things are critical elements to hike. Take care of your feet, take care of your feet, take care of your feet. So this is what I would consider to be the last stop of epic magnitude on this trip. Now, from here, I've laid out a plan to drive you out of here back towards civilization. But frankly, you can do that for yourself too. And with the mission being not if you drove, you're just going to turn around and drive home. If you flew, if you rented a car in Vegas and you got to fly out, you're just going to turn around and plant you a course to Vegas. You can plan a reverse trip back to Vegas, to drive back to Vegas from here. That's where you don't cover any of the same ground that you covered to get to here, but yet it's all just as wonderful because you were just in an incredible area of the country. Just remarkable. Remote, so remote, and so beautiful, and so dynamic, and so many mixed environments to imagine that in the same day you can visit a massive desert like Death Valley, and later that same day be at Mount Whitney. But here's the place to do those things, and while also enjoying an abundance of wilderness and wildlife. And just, I can't stress to you how much you will enjoy this trip. If you enjoy natural beauty, and you enjoy the woods, and you enjoy backpacking and hiking and nature and wildlife and animals, oh, you will find so much joy in this trip. Well, that pretty much covers trip number 1. I hope I did this journey justice, laying it out for you as I have, because let me tell you now that I don't think, maybe one or two, but there's very few places in the country that you can go that's going to be filled with as much majesty and as much magic as this trip on this budget. My $1,000 budget had you flying from across the country and then renting a car for 10 days. But if you only live 2 states away, just throw everybody in the car and drive there. Do the journey, do the joint, and then drive home. I know there's some of you that a trip like this might not be in the cards. But I also know that there is a lot of you out there who might perceive it to not be in the cards, but it can be. And I'm telling you, a trip like this will change your life. So do it, do it, do it. And the other thing I would say is don't get paralyzed with planning. You got to deal with the permit. Don't be paralyzed by planning. You've got to deal with the permit situation, and you've got to deal with that well in advance of leaving. And you've got to kind of map out your trip and decide where you're going and make sure that it fits within whatever budget you've designed for the trip. But outside of that, don't let planning stop the trip. Go, do it, experience this. It will change your life. The second journey we're going to talk about tonight is a backpacker's dream hike. It has a remarkable eclectic mix of wonder that I'm going to describe for you tonight. And this journey is going to start. Well, let me give you an overview first. What we're going to do here is we're going to travel northbound. We're going to travel northbound on a portion of the Appalachian Trail. And your journey is going to begin at Sam's Gap, where US 23 and Interstate 26 come together right along the Tennessee and North Carolina border at Sam's Gap. And that's where you're going to begin your journey traveling northbound on the Appalachian Trail from Sam's Gap. Now, the first really unique thing you're going to come across hiking northbound on the Appalachian Trail to Sam's Gap is Big Bald. Now, Big Bald is the old stomping grounds of Hog Greer. Now, Big Bald was originally named Greer Bald, and back in the early 1800s, from like 1802 to 1834, a fellow named Hog Greer called the mountain his own and had himself a little home that he built up on the top of the Bald there, the mountain. And he had been, his wife had left him, and he was mad, and he went and spent 32 years up on a mountain there. He was a cantankerous fella who I guess didn't have a lot of friends and didn't get along well with people, and ultimately killed a man, but was found innocent by reasons of insanity, if I recall correctly. And then later, the cantankerous Hog Greer was ultimately killed by the local blacksmith, who also was not charged in the murder of Hog Greer. About 5 miles into your hike, you're going to come across Big Bald, which is Greer Bald, and along this bald here is where Hog Greer made home for 32 years on top of this mountain. A short walk after Big Bald, you're going to come across your first shelter that you'll see on the Appalachian Trail, and it's called Bald Mountain Shelter. And what's unique about Bald Mountain Shelter is that it's one of the highest elevations for a shelter along the Appalachian Trail at 5,100 feet above sea level. After Bald Mountain Shelter, you'll have a nice hike where you'll come across campsites and springs with some regularity. You'll come upon No Business Knob Shelter, and I don't want to break down every step of the way for you because I want portions of this hike to be a surprise to you and for you to not know it's coming. And then ultimately, you're going to come into Erwin, Tennessee. Once you do your thing in Erwin, you're just going to continue hiking northbound. Now, this is where your hike's going to start to get really special. Not that it hasn't already, but out of Erwin, things are going to start to get special. And one of the early things you're going to come across out of Erwin, hiking north on the Appalachian Trail, is a place called Beauty Spot. The aptly named Beauty Spot, a beautiful spot. And if I had to give you a perfect time of year to do this hike, I would say leave in early June, around June 10th, roughly. And later on, you'll understand why. As you come on out of Beauty Spot, you're going to come over Unaka Mountain. I want to read to you a small portion from the Appalachian Trail Guide about Unaka Mountain, because Unaka Mountain, oh, the smell alone it's going to remind you, walking through Unaka Mountain is going to remind you, it's going to make you feel like you're somewhere else. Spruce trees grow everywhere on Unaka Mountain, so the smell alone is going to transport you. The soft forest floor is going to call to you. It's going to just, it's going to beg you to set up a tent and sleep on the pillowy soft forest floor that can be found at times through this area. But the overriding sensory takeaway from Unaka Mountain is the smell, the spruce smell, the overwhelming spruce smell. And like all hikes, the weather when you are at any of these places is going to determine what your interaction is like with these places. And, you could do the same exact hike, in different weather conditions and have an entirely different experience. So keep that in mind as I describe these places to you, because your results may vary based on weather and any other number of factors that, go into this. Shortly after you come over the more than 5,000 feet above sea level Unaka Mountain, you'll come down for a ways into ultimately Greasy Creek Gap. Now, here at Greasy Creek Gap, you will find the Greasy Creek Friendly. If you're feeling hungry, tired, wet, dirty, or in need of a shower, some laundry, this is the place to stop. The Greasy Creek Friendly. And all of this, of course, is pre-pandemic, so I don't know if anything's changed with any of this information I'm going to give you as it relates to the pandemic. So, again, your results may vary. But if the opportunity exists, when you get into Greasy Creek Gap there, you will see signs that will lead you to the Friendly there, the Greasy Creek Friendly. And if you're in need of a shower or a hot meal, I advise to stay there. And just continue north out of there, and here you're about to enter the Roan Highlands. Now, the Roan Highlands are just a wonderful, wonderful portion of this trip. A series of balds is what you're going to experience here. And you already have a little bit, and that's going to become more prominent throughout the Roan Highlands. Nobody quite knows exactly how these balds came to be. There's a lot of speculation, everything from native agriculture or animal grazing to alien visitation. Take that for what it's worth. But anyway, these balds, you're at the top of these enormous mountains and not a tree to be found. It's just grassland. And it's in the southern Appalachians anyway. That's a very unexplainable so far thing as to why or how they came to be. And it's a remarkable environment to spend some time in. And what you'll find is that because it's such a unique environment, what you'll find is plant life and flowers that thrive here on these balds at 6,000 feet that you can't find many other places. And the views without the blockage of the trees at the tops of these 6,000 feet tall mountains are remarkable. See, all the way back to the Smokies. Now, keep in mind, for the overwhelming majority of this hike, you're going to have 1 foot in Tennessee and 1 foot in North Carolina. Continue on and take your time in the Roan Highlands and really breathe this region in. These balds, these mountain peaks, this is a remarkable, remarkable area for hiking. And I want to remind you that, again, the weather plays a prominent factor in your experience and interaction with these environments. Is it a cloudy day? Is it a clear day? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is it foggy? Are the clouds high? Are the clouds low? Any number of factors. What's the wind doing? That could alter your experience at these high elevations on these beautiful balds. But there's enough of them over a large enough stretch of time that a few of them you'll experience with good weather, and you'll have varied experiences based on what the environment's like when you get there. But let me assure you that there's something special and unique about it, regardless of what the weather or environment is like when you get there. You'll be able to appreciate it for one aspect or another, regardless. Now, shortly after you get through the Roan Highlands, you come down into Carver's Gap, and then you're going to come shortly after that to another really neat place on the Appalachian Trail. It's Over Mountain Shelter. It's probably the largest shelter on the Appalachian Trail. The guidebook says it sleeps 20, but if my memory's correct, it probably sleeps like 5 times that. It's an enormous red barn, and it's gorgeous. And I think it's the sunset, but it might be the sunrise. But whichever it is, it has a remarkable one here at Over Mountain Shelter, excuse me. The sunset at Over Mountain Shelter is really, really beautiful. And it happens right out in front of the shelter, and it sets in almost into a valley right in front of the shelter. And it's a really, really photogenic and relaxing experience. So definitely, I encourage you to take the time to spend an evening at the Over Mountain Shelter and see all that it has to offer. And your hike is now close to an end. It's been about 80 miles. Your hike from Sam's Gap to US Highway 19 near Elk Park, North Carolina, and Roan Mountain, Tennessee, is about 75 miles total. Most of the time, you'll have one foot in Tennessee and the other in North Carolina, walking right along the border of the two states. I don't want to give too much away about this hike, and that's really important because it's so beautiful and so special, but I don't want every single aspect of the hike to be known to you. I want you to have some surprises out there, but I will give you some highlights. You will come across on your hike some incredible rhododendron runs, and for that matter, rhododendron gardens. You will experience high elevation spruce forests, which will just overload your senses and mellow you out in such a wonderful way. You are going to love the high elevation spruce. You're going to stay at the two highest shelters on the Appalachian Trail. Will have that opportunity to do that. One at over 5,000 feet and ultimately one at well over 6,000 feet. You'll also have the opportunity to stay at what I believe is the largest shelter on the Appalachian Trail, Over Mountain Shelter, which is an enormous red barn. You're going to walk through a series of balds, which is such a unique and wonderful environment. And I want to leave a lot to the imagination. I'll leave directions for how to get to both places, or I'll leave some information about both terminuses of this hike out of how to get to Sam's Gap and what a little bit about that area, and the 19E area there in Roan Mountain, Tennessee, or Elk Park, North Carolina. I'll leave some information about both terminus so you know how to get there and where exactly or close to exactly where these places are as you're planning your hikes. On a trail that's a highway to a large degree, like the Appalachian Trail is, I'll give you this tip for your hike along the Appalachian Trail. In the mornings, don't be the first one to leave camp going in the direction you're going in. Make sure that someone leaves the camp and goes in the direction you're traveling before you. The reasons for that are the repetitive facefuls of spider webs. Overnight, the spiders will build webs all across the trail, trying to catch the mosses and the flies and the whatever else might be flying along the trail. And the next morning, the first person walking is going to get faceful after faceful of spider webs. So let someone else be that person. So that's your Appalachian Trail hiking tip for this episode. Now, when you're in the Roan Highlands, you're going to be in some of the highest mountains east of the Mississippi in the whole East Coast. There's only really a few mountains higher than what you're going to experience here in your trip through the Roan Highlands. Just a bit south of you in the Smoky Mountains, you're going to have Mount Mitchell, Clingman's Dome. But outside of a couple of mountains in that region right there, the Roan Highlands that extend well up over 6,000 feet are going to be some of your highest mountains in the East, and you're going to traverse them. While at the same time, staying in the Roan, or if you choose to, you can stay in the Roan High Knob Shelter along the Appalachian Trail, which is, I believe, over 6,100 feet over sea level. the highest shelter by elevation on the Appalachian Trail.
This is
Shut up, bitch. Hey, fuck you.
today's Wednesday for sure. I think it's December 2nd, maybe December 3rd. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon. I am just outside of the Lake Mead National Recreation Area along Highway 147, very close to a portion of Nellis Air Force Base. Been walking through the desert for the better part of 3 days. Found water once. It has been totally extreme. Totally extreme. You can see that the desert isn't always flat. Giant, well, maybe they don't look so giant on the video, but I guarantee you there's some giant mountains pretty much surrounding me in every direction. See the big old boys back there, although they don't look like it way off in the distance. Gargantuan. Where I stand now, I guess no one knows for sure, certainly I don't, but very close to Area 51, an extraterrestrial highway. Maybe a little earlier. It was warm. It was 73 degrees. The water was freezing, but it was warm outside, so I jumped in, clothes and everything, because I was filthy. My clothes were filthy. I stunk. They stunk. And so, served a whole bunch of wonderful purposes, jumping in with my clothes on. Sat there on the bank for about an hour and just drank I pumped, 6 liters of water. I drank about 3. Pumped 3 more to fill that back up and wait for my clothes to dry. And then off I went again to here. Haven't found water since Lake Mead or before. I do know that right now where I stand, I'm about 9 miles from North Las Vegas. As you can see, still in the middle of total nowhere, 8 miles from Vegas. I don't know if off in the distance you can see maybe 250 yards straight ahead, all those big power lines. They're all coming from the Hoover Dam, and massive, massive power lines. You can actually hear them rattle and spark as you walk underneath them, which I've done a couple times. A whole lot of nothing. I haven't talked to a person in 60 hours. And I won't until probably early tomorrow afternoon, because I could make it into Vegas tonight, but Vegas is like, the den of hell, and I'm not exactly sure where I would camp there, if I can camp in there at all, so I'm not going to go in there at night and having to find a place to camp or run back out of town. So I'm going to get as close as I can tonight and then camp on the outskirts in the desert again. Go in there first thing in the morning. The desert, it has been for 3 days, probably 80 miles of nothing. No water, no buildings, no people, nothing. Been tough. It has been tough. My body feels like it's been in the desert for 80 hours. The sand, thank God the wind has been pretty low, because my first night in the desert, the wind blew like crazy, and you just can't keep sand out of everything. I woke up with an inch of sand laying all over me the next morning, blew up all underneath and in my tent. Just a mess. All right, I've said enough.
Shut up, bitch.
Off, about 8 miles on Highway 147, about 8 miles from northern Las Vegas. Not far from Area 51, an extraterrestrial highway. And I am going to check out Area 51. I'm going to walk a highway right along the outer edge of the Area 51 for about 50 miles. All right.
Shut up, bitch.
Highway 147, 8 miles from Vegas. Later.